Welcome to the National Archives Know Your Records program. My name is Andrea Bassing-Matney. We're broadcasting live from the National Archives building in Washington, D.C., although our presenter is actually in Fort Worth, Texas. We are so pleased that you have joined us today. Before we begin, there are a few tips I would like to share with you. For those of you here on site, please hold on to your questions until the end of the presentation, and when you're ready, we ask that you use the microphones that are here in the aisles so we can capture your question online. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can also participate by logging into the chat feature of YouTube, and we will ask your questions for you. There's also on the YouTube webpage 2 web links. One will take you to the presentation slides that you can download, and you can also find a captioning link where you can get the live captioning. Today's presenter is Meg Hacker, Archives Director for the National Archives at Fort Worth. Ms. Hacker has been at the National Archives at Fort Worth since 1985. She received her BA in American History from Austin College and her MA in American History from Texas Christian University. Texas Western Press published her thesis, Cynthia Ann Parker, The Life and the Legend. She has presented to numerous historical and genealogical societies, archives and library associations, teacher and services, and classrooms, and a wide assortment of topics, including Chinese exclusion, repatriation oaths, genealogy, immigration records, Native American records, 19th century Fort Smith criminal cases, NASA records, maritime records, and basic strategies for researching at the National Archives. And now for our presentation on online resources relating to American Indians. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our speaker, Meg Hacker.
Hi, welcome to the Online Resources Relating to American Indians program on Know Your Records. My name is Meg Hacker, and I'm going to be your host for the next 45 minutes to an hour-ish. And while I cannot see or hear you, I do hope you'll ask your questions at the end or via YouTube. I'm going to start today on slide 6. I'm very excited to introduce you to the Researching American Indians in Alaska Native web pages. Hopefully by the end of this session, I will have invigorated you enough to explore the many resources and records that are literally at your fingertips. While these pages are chock full of information, I realize we won't be able to answer all of your questions or research needs, but there are links on almost every page for you to ask a question or contact for additional information. Next slide, slide 7. Just a few words about the background to these pages. These pages are truly generated from a labor of love. A few years ago, a team of National Archives employees from across the country, including myself, volunteered their time and expertise to collect finding aids, articles, and websites, lists, you name it, anything relating to Record Group 75, the records of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Our goal was to develop a collaborative, innovative finding aid to assist researchers locate the information they are seeking. This turned into a multi-year project that is still ongoing. So you will see a comment here or there to check back soon. This is truly a work in progress. Next slide, slide 8. Well, I hate to start anything with a negative. I just want to address some of the major misconceptions. While everyone would truly love a one-stop shopping page where you could enter a name and find all your answers immediately, these pages are not that. Our web pages that we're going to go through are resources to help you discover new information about records relating to American Indians. These pages are full of sidebars, links to articles, publications, and even other websites that will help you learn more about your topic. While we are scanning constantly, not everything is digitally available online. We try to update the web pages to reflect what is available online as well as what is not. Next slide, slide 9. So let's start at the very beginning. www.archives.gov. You will note 5 tabs: Research Our Records, Veterans Service Records, Teachers Resources, Our Locations, and Shop Online. I hope you will take time to explore all of these tabs, as they will virtually take you to some incredible places and provide you with some valuable information. I have a lot of fun with these tabs, and never is the same experience the same. So click away at your leisure, but today, and for today's purposes, we are going to select the first tab, Research Our Records. Next slide, slide 10. As you can see, there are even more areas of interest on this page. I cannot emphasize enough to you to take some time, roll up your sleeves, grab a cup of coffee, and explore these pages. You will be amazed at what is out there. Some of my very favorite pages to explore are those belonging to our online exhibits. See the very bottom right. But save that for later, because today we're going to research a specific topic. Next slide, slide 11. Here you will find a plethora of topics on this page. You can explore them all, and please do. It never ceases to amaze me how much the National Archives has online, what is available. The trick is to find it all, and the trick is to find the time to explore it all. But again, today, for today's discussion, we're going to select ethnic heritage. Next slide, slide 12. Again, you will see on this highlights from our collections, various ethnic heritage. You can still explore to your heart's content, but for today we're going to go to American Indian Heritage, and we'll select that. Next page, slide 13. So voila, you have reached the pages dedicated to researching American Indians and Alaska Natives. You might want to bookmark this page. So let's examine the page for a moment. You see the introduction. The main question to ask yourself whenever pondering if the National Archives might have the resources or the records you're seeking is, how does my research topic intersect with the U.S. federal government? To help you answer that question with regards to American Indians, we've added 4 tabs. Are you researching an individual or family? Are you researching an American Indian tribe, band, or community? Or are you researching a geographic place, treaties, or past laws? You will notice that our treaties and past laws tab says check back soon, but if you were looking at it today, you will see that it's up and running. See, this is truly a work in progress, and we're advancing. So let's go to the first tab, an individual or family. Next slide, slide 14. This page illustrates the vastness of researching an American Indian or individual or family. Keep in mind that the federal documents related to American Indians at the National Archives can include information about tribal members, federal officials, Indian agents, military personnel, teachers, nurses, laborers, you name it. So this individual can literally be anybody. The types of records may or may not be what you're imagining. The typical ones might include censuses, correspondence, enrollments, or rolls. But there are also financial records, leases, maps, reports, and others. The topics vary as well. You might find birth, death, marriage, and divorce records scattered, as well as education, employment, probate, and more. And as I mentioned earlier, the people in these records are tribal members, they're employees, they can be ministers, teachers, medical personnel, etc. So take a moment to look at this page and notice the left side of the page. This is our table of contents, and it will expand and contract depending on the page you are on. On the right side, you will see multicolored pages or boxes that link to articles, websites, lists, and other bits of information. In the middle of the page, in my purple circle, we're going to click on the hyperlink to learn more. We're going to learn more about researching an individual and family member in the American Indian records. Well, next slide, slide 15. Now we are on a portal page of sorts. Here you can decide if you'd like to research census records, which include Indian census records, as well as federal population censuses. You can research the Bureau of Indian Affairs records, which include allotment records, case files, employment, financial, and others. You can also research school records, including student case files and administrative files. There are also employment records, which include headquarter and field offices, as well as Indian agents, superintendents, and others. And finally, military service records, including discharge papers, official personnel files, pension files, and more. So let's pause for a second to reflect that this is a finding aid. So while you might actually think when you click on one of these portals, you're actually going to see a lot of digitized documents, but that's not going to be the case. These pages we're going to provide you with information and guidance about the records. Then you can decide whether or not you want to pursue researching them. I'm going to go through each of these portals today. So starting with the first one, census records. Next slide, slide 16. This page provides you with two very different censuses. The first one pertains to the Indian census rolls, which were taken from 1885 through 1940. Agents and superintendents from various reservations submitted annual census rolls. These records documented individuals and families who maintained a formal connection with federal recognized tribes. Many years ago, the National Archives microfilmed these records on microfilm publication. And Ancestry.com has digitized these records, and they are now available in a searchable format. But more on these records in a minute. The other part of the page pertains to federal population censuses. These are the censuses that the government has been taking every 10 years since 1790. Next slide, slide 17. Here is a side-by-side view of these pages. You will see samples of both types of censuses. The information gathered by both censuses are similar. The Indian census rolls can include name, gender, age, birth date, agency, marital status, tribal affiliation, and family relation. I'm going to pause for a second to draw your attention to the teal-colored box on the Federal Population Census page. It will take you to a great prologue article on the Native Americans in the census from 1860 to 1890. Prologue is the National Archives quarterly magazine, and there are incredible articles at your fingertips on Prologue's main page. But throughout these pages, there will be links to Prologue articles, and I'll try and draw your attention to a few of them. Next slide, slide 18. Moving on to the next portal, the Bureau of Indian Affairs records. This series of pages attempts to describe the vast array of records that the BIA and its predecessor agencies have created as early as 1793. We've attempted to highlight a few of them in tabs: allotment records, applications, cases, rolls, even one about learn more about BIA records available for each tribe and BIA schools in each state. But first, we're going to explore the allotment records. Next slide, slide 19. On this allotment page, you will see there are a wide variety of allotment records. The BIA created numerous records that documented land, finances, goods, properties, you name it. A cautionary note: not all individuals living on a tribe or on a reservation received allotments. So if your individual that you're researching is a member of the tribe, but you can't find many allotments, that might be very normal in that situation. But if you do find them, allotments can involve property, finances. The property includes the legal description of the property, the dates of transactions, the amount of money allotted, and many other details. So while these records may not be the most glamorous, they can provide some incredible information on the individual or family you are searching. Next slide, slide 20. Let's look at the applications and case files portion of the BIA records. the BIA received and processed applications and case files from as early as the 1800s onward, and for a variety of reasons. We've tried to highlight various types of these records into three main areas: finances, which you can see ledgers of applications for expenditures or individual Indian money expenditures, and so forth. There's also a section on land, leases, mining, timber, water, that type of application. And there's also the tribal enrollment, the membership, various different applications. So we're going to take a look at the next portal, which is the rolls. Next slide, slide 21. The BIA gathered, collected, created numerous rolls involving American Indians to identify members of tribes and bands. This page is chock full of hyperlinks and samples of various rolls. There's also a very nice information box for research tips, noting again that not all rolls are available online. For today's example, we're going to click on the Dawes rolls, the 1896 to 1914 5 Civilized Tribes of Oklahoma. This happens to be also available on NAR's partner sites of Ancestry.com. But before we click on that, I just wanted to draw your attention to the detailed information. There's the Baker rolls, the Indian census rolls, which we talked about earlier, the Roblin roll, the Kern-Clifton, Wallace rolls. These are all incredible rolls that you may or may not pertain to the research topic that you have at hand. But for today, we're going to go through the Dawes roll. So the next slide, slide 22, please. On the page of the background information to the Dawes rolls, we have provided a short, and believe me, very short introduction to the Dawes Act and the subsequent commission. The commission created the final rolls for the 5 civilized tribes of Oklahoma, the Cherokees, the Chickasaws, the Choctaws, the Creeks, and the Seminoles. These rolls are possibly one of the most, if not the most popular records we have at the National Archives at Fort Worth. And on this page, we've also tried to include a flow chart of sorts to help you decide if you need to pursue these records more. So you can click on that little link to get the PDF version to be a little bit bigger. And, of course, it takes you down to the Dawes rolls below. If you see on the other section of this page, that's the lower section of the website, the Dawes rolls, and it shows you the 3 different sections: the census cards, the enrollment jackets, and the land allotment jackets. And we tried to include the census cards are available on Ancestry and Fold 3. The enrollment jackets are available on Ancestry and Fold 3. And the land allotment jackets is available on Family Search and Ancestry. So we're updating all the time. Take your time on this page to look at the detail of the records that you'll find. There are even prologue articles again. This one happens to be on Creek Indians. Take a look at this at your leisure, and we will now advance to the next slide, slide 23. Here's a whole page devoted to locating and deciphering Dawes census cards. Note that on the top right of the page, there's a link to all of the Dawes enrollment categories, including adopted, citizen by blood, citizens by marriage, denied, doubtful, freedmen, minors, newborns, rejected, and there are others. It is very important for you to know the category of the individual you're researching so you can locate more records. But here's the cards up close. You'll see that you can click on any of those census cards at the bottom for an approved census card, a rejected Dawes census card, as well as a denied Freedman Dawes census card. Please note that some of them are double-sided, so you want to make sure you look at the flip side. But if you look at the next slide, which is slide 24, you'll see a sample of a Dawes card from the Chickasaw Nation. On here, this particular one has at least 14 bits of information highlighted. Other cards have even more. It's amazing. Stop, take a look, blow it up if you can to get the detail if you need to. Everything on here will lead you to another place or tell a story. Alas, there are some cards that have even less than that, but this is pretty typical what you're looking at today. So if we focus at this one, it shows the location, the tribe, the family members, the ages, even who their parents were, and in the middle, some clarification notes. Sometimes the clarification notes are the most important and should not be overlooked. So read them over and over again if necessary, as they can take you to other types of records. They can explain the difference between names on different roles, and it can provide you with some information regarding births, deaths, marriages, and other vital records. Some of the records, again, are double-sided, so you want to make sure to see if there's a reverse side. The cards are related to the enrollment jackets and the land allotment jackets. So don't think that you are finished with these records simply by looking at the census cards. Usually there's a whole lot more. So the next slide, slide 25. So quickly, here is a page dedicated to the Dawes enrollment and land allotment jackets. They provide testimony taken during the enrollment process, as well as legal description, value, physical improvements made on designated lands, and many other things. As a side note, all of the census cards, again, enrollment jackets and land allotment jackets, are available online on our partner sites. And you can view those for free at the National Archives on any public access, public computer. So take a look at these. There's incredible detail in what we included on these pages. And there's also Dawes land allotment maps that are available on the National Archives online catalog. They're in color, beautiful, and can highlight where the family member or the individual you're researching lived. Next slide, slide 26. So let's take a look at the Eastern Band of Cherokees and the Baker Roll of 1924 to 1929. An act of Congress established the Eastern Cherokee Enrolling Commission to determine memberships for the Eastern Band of Cherokees. What resulted is commonly referred to as the Baker Roll. Interestingly enough, the Baker Roll is also the compilation of numerous other rolls, including the 1835 Census of Cherokees, the 1851 Chapman Roll, the Hester Roll, the Council Roll. You see those on the right side, the Churchill Roll, and the Guillen-Miller Roll. And we've noted, with the exception of the Hester Roll, the records are not digitized. The Hester Roll is available on Fold 3. So many of these records will give you a name and perhaps not a lot of other information. But when you add it all together and you look at these various rolls across the decades, you might be able to pinpoint where the individual or the family moved or lived. But we're going to take a quick look at the Guillen-Miller Roll on the next slide, slide 27. In 1905, the Interior Department's employee, Guillen Miller, everybody wonders where this name came from. It was an employee for the Department of Interior. He was tasked with creating a verified list of Eastern Cherokees who would receive part of a $1 million appropriation. Guillen Miller received applications from over 125,000 individuals. These applications have resulted in incredible family information, a lot of detail, and the files and applications sometimes are many, many pages long. So let's take a look at the Guillen-Miller rolls and the applications because they are available on Fold 3. So an interesting point about Guillen-Miller is that there was no residency requirement, as I noted up at the top on the right, as the Dawes rolls. The Dawes rolls, you had to be in with the tribe on a designated reservation. But Guillen Miller did not have a residency requirement. And individuals from other countries even applied. Since there was a cash award and people participating in this $1 million appropriation, a lot of people applied, and even more were rejected. So when you take a look at these applications, don't be surprised if some of them were rejected. Next slide, slide 28. This tab is this is the tab that was on the first page of researching BIA records for each state. Navigating Record Group 75 records can be quite a task. The complexity of the agency, the hierarchies it ensues can be very daunting. I will not kid you. We have tried to make researching these records a little bit easier by arranging them geographically by state and thereunder by the tribes within those states' borders. Under each entry for a tribe or a band is a list of BIA offices, which has a jurisdictional relationship with that tribe. The National Archives facility, which houses the records for that office, is also listed. So when you get time, take a look at these pages and see if you can't find something that piques your interest. You'll notice that some of the records will be in Washington, D.C., as well as in Fort Worth or another facility. And these are not duplicated records. It's just that the records for that agency are available in both places. Very tedious, I won't lie. Next slide, slide 29. Here's a moment to pause to discuss our navigational resource that we've created, these web pages. Our team compiled these pages to help you, to direct you to the appropriate archival facility, and it also includes our affiliated archives. The Oklahoma Historical Society in Oklahoma City also has Record Group 75 records that are owned by the National Archives. We have included several links to additional resources, and note at the bottom of the page is a list of BIA schools, also arranged by state. Let's go there next. So let's go next slide, slide 30. This page is just a jumping off point. American Indian school records can be quite informative. On this page is not only a list of schools by states, but also a link at the top right to go to more information, and that's where we're going to go. Next slide, slide 31. While many American Indian students attended day schools, boarding schools, and mission schools located on their own reservations, beginning in the 1880s, the BIA established non-reservation boarding schools for vocational education. These schools enrolled students from different tribes from all over the United States. So we've included a link to a page explaining how to request a student case file, as well as a little section on tips for locating student files. Please note, student case files and other student-related documents that are less than 75 years old may contain personal information about the individuals who are still living. These records are restricted under the Freedom of Information Act and must be screened by National Archives staff before being released to researchers. Let's go to the next slide, slide 32. You might be interested in the administrative portion of American Indian schools, which include correspondence, reports, school censuses, attendance reports, and photographs. You can also find the school's annuals, journals, and other publications. All right, next slide, slide 33. We are in the home stretch, I promise. Let's take a look at employment records. Thousands of individuals have worked in the federal offices, especially those related to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Some were appointed employees, such as agents, officials, and even superintendents. But there are hundreds more who submitted applications to be teachers, nurses, construction workers, and many others to work within the BIA and the jurisdiction of American Indians. Here are just a few to search for documents pertaining to employment. There's the official register of the United States from 1817 to 1925. In there, you can see that it contains a list of civilian, military, even naval employees, but it includes the second bullet, the Indian agents, the inspectors, the special Indian agents, and allotting agents. And it gives you more information on where to go for those. You can also see employee appointments from 1849 to 1907. Again, these are appointments to federal agencies by the President or the Secretary of Interior. These are appointed. These include Indian agents, inspectors, and others. And then there's the roster of employees from 1848 to 1963. And these also include Indian agents, superintendents, and other field officials. And then, last but not least, are the official personnel files. And so every federal employee has a personnel file, and these also include the functions of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. But if we scroll to the bottom of this page, we'll see even more. So next slide, slide 34. This is at the bottom of the page we were just on, and this covers the Civilian Conservation Corps. From 1922 to 1942, the CCC hired thousands of young men to help with various conservation projects. And within the CCC, there was a subdivision that employed only American Indians. The CCC ID, or Indian Division, was created. And be sure and click on that prologue article for, there's two of them, Dangers in the Civilian Conservation Corps, as well as Into the Woods, the first years of the Civilian Conservation Corps, for more information. Next slide. This one pertains to those rosters that I talked about previously. Here's the page that'll give you a little bit more information. The rosters list individuals who work for the Department of Interior, and the information includes the name, gender, age, race, marital status, and more. So it's amazing to see what is available right here. Next slide, slide 36. Now we're going to turn our focus to military service records. This page is an introduction, or really more of a launching page to more information. We've provided you with the links necessary to locate records prior to 1917 and post-1917. Make sure you look at the 3 prologue articles on the American Indian service in the military. You can select the links to more information on Indian Scouts, Code Talkers, and Indian companies. The links are on the page, but you can't see them because my PowerPoint cut them off at the bottom, but I promise you that they are there, believe me. And we're going to select the link to Indian Scouts. So the next slide, slide 37. Here you will find an enormous amount of information on American Indian Scouts, both enlisted and hired. You will also find Army Indian companies and Code Talkers. So take your time to go through them. There's several clicks, several links, and you will be impressed, hopefully. Next slide, slide 38. We're going to look at the enlisted Indian Scouts. The Army Reorganization Act of 1866 authorized the President to enlist American Indians. The Indian Scouts typically serve 3 to 6 months at a time, and this page is going to provide you information on the index to enlistment papers for the Indian Scouts, as well as how to find the actual enlistment papers. You must go through both processes. The records have not been digitized but are available at the National Archives at Washington, D.C. And, of course, make sure you click on the link to the prologue article, Lead the Way, for more information on enlisted scouts. Next slide, slide 39. In addition to enlisting Indian Scouts, the U.S. Army also hired them. They were paid a monthly wage, and they could be rehired after their contract expired. And here's the information to locate the index and reports for hired Indian Scouts. And again, you can see another opportunity to click on Lead the Way in Prologue. Next slide, slide 40. The United States enlisted American Indians to serve in Indian companies after 1891 when the War Department General Order authorized the United States Army to do so. Some of the records you will find on the Indian companies include descriptive books and muster rolls. And these records can provide a lot of information on the individual that you're researching, including the name, the age, physical description, birthplace, and other information. There is quite a bit out there. Next slide, slide 41. These pages are dedicated to code talkers. They just can't be beat. I find them absolutely fascinating. We have a launching pad for military service records on this page, military service records for code talkers, military subject files and photographs related to code talkers, as well as, again, prologue articles, and then, of course, a little way you can get back to the main pages. So take your time going through all these nooks and crevices on these pages. There's quite a bit available. Next slide, slide 42. Here's a little bit of the information on the subject files and photographs for code talkers. We're going to give a shout-out to the National Archives at Riverside because they have some incredible records relating to code talkers that are out of the Navajo area office, out of the record group RG75 of Bureau of Indian Affairs. So when you take a look at these, you see the Navajo code talker subject files related to World War II, and then another use of American Indians as communication linguists from 1943 to 44. Take your time and go through these. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And now we're going to end our slides. Next slide, 43. We've come to the end of our journey today with these pages. I promise you there's more to explore than what I have covered. Here are a few resources to note, especially if you're using some of these records for K through 12, or even in undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate researchers. There's some tips in using them. There's also tips for successful searches with our online catalog, as well as our guide. I hope I have helped you introduce you to a few things that you didn't know were out there. I hope I've whet your appetite so you dive into these web pages and subsequently into the records. And I look forward to your questions, and I certainly hope I can provide answers. Thank you for your attendance and attention to this program. I welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meg. Wow, there's a ton of information out there. We have several people who are following us online, and they do have some questions for you. So I'll start with the questions that came to us online, and then I'll invite our audience that's here in person to ask their questions. And if you have any questions for the presenter, ask that you use the microphones in the aisles. So with that, our first online question, a little background. This came from Terry. She says, the Joe and Dillard Perry transfer cases have some valuable genealogical information helpful to Choctaw and Chickasaw Freedmen descendants. Will the National Archives publish the Joe and Dillard Perry transfer case files online anytime soon?
Those are great records. We have them here in Fort Worth, and yes, the answer is yes. Now, the definition of the word soon might be the argumentative. We do have plans to get them digitized and available. They are on our list of series to describe or to scan. But yes, they are wonderful. I can't agree with you more.
Thank you. So, on to our next question. The question is, where can I find information for Lipan Apache? My ancestors are from South Texas and at that time, northern Mexico, early 1800s.
Okay, for those, you might want to try the censuses that I talked about earlier, where it was, if they ever lived with on a reservation. And the census records were the Indian census rolls from 1885 to 1940. And these used to be on, well, they are on microfilm publication M595, but Ancestry and I think Fold 3 have them available online as well. But these would be the Indian census rolls from 1885 to 1940. And I hope you find them.
Thank you so much. Our next question, are any of the Choctaw neighborhood schools digitized? These are from the 1880s and 90s.
Okay, those, I would strongly recommend that you contact the Oklahoma Historical Society in Oklahoma City. As I mentioned, that they are one of our affiliated archives, and they have quite a few records that are available on microfilm. They have not been digitized, but they have been microfilmed from that time period. And just depending on which school you're looking for might dictate whether or not it's been microfilmed.
Thank you, Meg. So, on to our next question. We have quite a few, so hang in there. Okay. So our next one is, so all of Record Group 75 is not exclusively at the National Archives in Washington, D.C. or Fort Worth, so they're spread out?
Yes. And when you look at that one page that I had with the records across the agency, I'm sorry, not across the agency, across the country. And it's a list of BIA records by state. And it will list everything from Alabama to Wisconsin. Now, or Wyoming, not all of the states have records, but if you click on the state in particular, it will list what records are available or which agencies were there in that state, which tribes and which BIA agencies. And if they created records, then you can pursue it even more. But I would take a look at the BIA records, navigating Record Group 75 Bureau of Indian Affairs records, and it's on the left side when you do the main page on the American Indian records.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. On to our next question. Where would one find citizenship court records?
Okay, there are some citizenship court records for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, for the 5 tribes in Oklahoma, and you would find them here in Fort Worth. And if you write me at ftworth.archives, FT, like Fort Worth, but without the OR, ftworth.archives@nara.gov, and we will be able to help you with that.
Thank you for that email. Our question comes from AJ Groom, and the question is, any tips for New England tribal nations?
Oh.
That's pretty big.
I would recommend that you contact inquire@nara.gov because those tribes are out of my normal realm of comfort, and they would be able to address that better.
Thank you, Meg. So again, that email address is inquire, INQUIRE, @nara.gov. So we have at least 2 more questions. Where would I find the Choctaw-Chickasaw citizenship court records?
You'll find them at the National Archives at Fort Worth, and we have them available on microfilm. We are hoping to get that digitized and available online, but that too is on our list of things to be digitized. But presently they are on microfilm, And the Oklahoma Historical Society in Oklahoma City also has a copy of that microfilm as well. But if you email us or write us, we can also send you images from those cases. The Choctaw-Chickasaw Citizenship Court cases are quite large. They average probably 25 on up pages each. So just FYI. But yes, please email us, and we'll be happy to help you get to those records.
Thank you, Meg. We have a question from Angela, and she's done quite a bit of research, so she knows her stuff, but she does have this question. There were cases where freedmen challenged their status on the Dawes rolls, many at Fort Worth. Will they be digitized?
I'm hoping that we'll get quite a few of the cases, all of the cases. This is all still a relatively new experience for us getting it digitized. And so we're hoping that we will get more of those available online, if not at least be available on National Archives page, online catalog. They may not be this year, but we do have plans to get them available. But in the meantime, again, you can email us at ftworth.archives@nara.gov, and we will help you with your research that way. And, of course, you're welcome to come here to Fort Worth, roll up your sleeves, and do the research in person.
Okay, fair enough. Our next question, it's pretty specific. Is the Betty Ligon case available? Equity case 7071.
The answer to that, I'd have to know more about the case itself. Off the top of my head, I do not know the answer. But if you email us, we will definitely research it and get an answer to you.
Okay, fair enough. I thought that might be a little too specific. I'm not sure I understand this next question, but let's give it a try. Where to find original records for Dawes Act not distributed to FDLP libraries? And then they go on to say Android says part of internal circulars.
I think that would be right there in your neck of the woods at the National Archives at Washington, D.C. The official Dawes Act and the actual records behind it would be held at the National Archives at Washington, D.C. What we would have in Fort Worth would be more of the working papers of the Dawes Commission, but the act itself, that should be in Washington.
Thank you so much. I have one more online question. Are there any questions from our audience here? Okay, so this next question I believe is our last, and it's a good one. Are there any digitizing programs earmarked for the Native American records in the pipeline?
In the pipeline. They did, Ancestry.com did a huge push on digitizing 5 Tribes records in Fort Worth, and quite a bit were uploaded a year ago, November. As of right now, I think we do not have any here in Fort Worth. I cannot speak for other National Archives facilities. I know the emphasis right now that's been going on has been naturalization records. So, but that doesn't mean they're not going to get done. There will be more, I promise.
Thank you, Meg. Actually, one more question came in. I think it's worth asking. The question is, are congressional committee records relating to Native Americans available in digital or digital finding aids?
The digital finding aids, that may be the National Archives Guide to Record Group 75 and other congressional series or record groups. There, I would pose that question to inquire at nara.gov and let one of the archivists in Washington, D.C. respond. They would have the records and would know if they've been digitized or available online.
Thank you so much. And that concludes our questions from the audience. What a fantastic presentation. Thank you, Meg, for doing this for us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great evening.